You know, I'm excited because today we're talking about books. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be getting into some of the books that have been interesting me and been really fun to read this year, and books that I recommend to you guys for next year. Let's go. So the first book that I've got is actually on my Kindle. It's called Essentialism. I read this at the top of this year, and it was a really, really, really good book. Really good book. It was written by Greg McKeown. It's called Essentialism, The Disciplined Pursuit of Less. And it's funny because a mentor actually recommended I read this about 2 years ago. I want to say, 2 years ago now. And I finally got the chance to read it. And I when I was reading it, I understood why he asked me to read it. So the book ultimately is talking to us about the disciplined pursuit of less. Why this book sticks out to me, why it's particularly interesting to me, is that we have a tendency to kind of run after so many things in our lives, right? We're trying to do this, we're trying to do that, and we have a tendency to kind of like really wear ourselves out and not really kind of like make progress in one particular area. And I was thinking when I was at the start of 2022 about a system that I wanted to build out that would be helpful for me to understand what's really important in life, because you can get dragged in so many different directions, and if you don't really have a compass for yourself and you don't really have an understanding of what you value and what you deem important, you can get kind of taken a hold and taken captured by so many other people's competing demands and sometimes their agendas and the things that they have going on. So I really wanted to build a system that would be helpful for me and that I could build out and continue to use for the rest of my life. And this book was really, really good for that. So the book is actually split up into four parts. So there's the essence at the very beginning, there's explore, there's eliminate, and there's execute. And they all ask particular questions. So essence asks the question of what ultimately is the core mindset of an essentialist. What does it necessarily mean to be an essentialist? While explore says how can we discern the trivial many from the vital few? And that's a point that gets kind of used a lot in the context of this book as we go forward, right? The trivial many and the vital few. And I think always in our lives we're always kind of like seen to be kind of like battling between those two ideas, right? Sometimes we spend a lot of time doing so many things and we realize that it's quite trivial when it's kind of like a few things that really move the needle in our lives based on our goals, our visions, and the things that we've set for ourselves. And then eliminate. So how can we work to eliminate the trivial many? And finally execute. How can we make doing the vital few things almost effortless? So the book kind of like runs it through that, and it's really helpful. I really enjoyed that book. Really, really enjoyed it. So fun. The next book, I'm actually trying to be digital now. So you're going to see a few of the books that I have or got actually on my Kindle. The next book is this book. The Will to Change by Bell Hooks. The Will to Change by Bell Hooks. Men, Masculinity, and Love. First and foremost, shout out. First and foremost, RIP to the late Bell Hooks. Phenomenal writer. I got into her when I was studying at university. I think I was doing like a module in like masculinity, and I wanted to talk in particular about black masculinity, and her book We Real Cool should also be on this list, but like her book We Real Cool is a really, really helpful introductory book for anyone that wants to kind of understand the relationship between hip-hop and black masculinity. I thought that was quite a cool book, but this one is the Will to Change, and the Will to Change is good. So fun fact, Bell Hooks' name wasn't actually Bell Hooks. That was her pen name. Her real name was actually Gloria Jean Watkins. And she used her pen name Bell Hooks kind of in honor of her maternal great-grandmother, whose name was Belle Blair Hooks. And why this book is super important for me was it provided language for a shift that I was going through at a particular point in my life, that I wanted to understand what it meant to model healthy masculinity. I had been presented, subconsciously and consciously, I had been presented types of masculinity that I didn't think were helpful for myself or even for others in the long run. And I wanted a sustainable but also a viable form of masculinity that I could understand, that I could work to, because the relationship that I was seeing with myself and the relationship that I was seeing what people expected, they sometimes came at a loggerhead, and I was always a bit unsure about what it meant to be a man, particularly kind of like growing up in a dynamic that didn't necessarily have my father present. So I was actually recommended this book by a friend, a very dear friend. She actually recommended it to me when I was working in New York for a bit, and I read this book, and it's amazing. It's phenomenal. I'm actually going to see if I can find anything. This is probably like I highlight a lot of books, but like one of the highlights is affirmation brings us closer together. It is the highest realization of compassion and empathy with others. One of the negative aspects of anti-male feminist critiques of masculinity was the absence of any affirmation of that which is positive and potentially positive in male being. So my favorite chapter in this book is chapter 10, Reclaiming Male Integrity. So she says, speaking about the meaning of integrity in his most recent book, Living a Life That Matters, Rabbi Harold Kushner offers this clear definition. Integrity means being whole, unbroken, undivided. It describes a person who has united the different parts of his or her personality so that there is no longer a split in the soul. That book, brothers, like if there's brothers like watching this video, if there's any reason for you to buy that book, it's for that chapter. That chapter gave language to so many ideas and so many thoughts that I had at the time about how to manage compassion, but also strength, or were the two as different as sometimes they were proposed to be, right? Showing strength and bravado and showing compassion is actually the same thing, and in my experience, like, it's always been beautiful to be integrated as a whole. And that's part of why I actually started this channel, is so that for me, one of the things I really care about is holistic living, holistic flourishing and holistic prosperity. And I really care about us doing well in every single area of our life, not just in a particular area. And I think this book, in terms of reclaiming male integrity, was so powerful for me, man. So powerful. So definitely, this book is helpful for any brothers that really want to live a good life. And I say good in the sense that sometimes people, I was talking to someone the other day and they're like, oh, but we don't really use the terms good and bad anymore because everything's so, and I get it. But a good life in the sense that it's a beautiful life, that you care about the people in your life and you want to become a better person for them and for yourself ultimately as well. So I think that's important. So that's The Will to Change by the late Bell Hooks, R.I.P. I should intro myself into all books like this. But the next book is The Courage to Be Disliked. The Courage to Be Disliked by Ichiro Kishimi and Fumite Koga. And I really, really enjoyed this book, actually. I read it, my friend recommended, of course I'm good friends, they keep recommending me books. Yeah, so a friend recommended me this book when I was trying to understand really kind of like how to manage the situations in my life, whilst also being respectful of some of the things that were happening in my friend's life, and knowing when not to kind of like intervene. So The Courage to Be Disliked, how to free yourself, change your life, and achieve real happiness. Some bold statements right there. But I really enjoyed this book, actually, and I think what made me enjoy this book particularly was the way in which the book is set out. So the book is actually set out as a conversation between a youth that comes to visit a philosopher. So it's a conversation between a youth and I'd imagine kind of like a more experienced philosopher. And in it, the youth is almost kind of like presenting him his set of kind of like issues in life, and the philosopher is providing certain points that actually, when you're looking and you're assessing the conversation, it's quite challenging to the youth's worldview, to the way in which he or she understands the world to work. I think it's actually set out as a hymn, and it was really helpful. It was really, really helpful for me when I was reading this, because it put so much into perspective for me. The main thing that was really helpful for me in this book is this idea of separating tasks. And if anyone knows, like, over the last 6 months, I've been that phrase, I've been like, separate tasks. Separate tasks. Separate tasks. But yeah, it's been to separate tasks, and ultimately what separate tasks means is this idea that there are responsibilities provided to each person for their life. And sometimes we think we're being a good friend or being a good sibling or being a good parent by imposing ourselves on someone else's task. But in the long run, if we don't allow that person to develop the initiative, the independence, and the integrity to carry out their own tasks, and we kind of like muddy the waters between our tasks and their tasks, it's actually not helpful for the relationship, and it's actually detrimental for their growth. And I thought that was such a good idea. I was like, when I was reading, I was like, whoa, that's actually really true. Like, that's really true. And I've seen it play out in my life. I've seen it play out even for myself, where there's certain tasks and certain experiences where someone that I love dearly had to step away and be like, yo, this is something that you need to figure out, right? You need to understand this for yourself. I can't kind of impose myself here. And if you think about, like, I was listening to to this message one time, and if you think about the development of a baby to a child to eating, the first point it becomes that the child has to be fed by the primary or the secondary caregiver, in the sense that you actually feed the child. So you bring the spoon to the mouth, and the next stage is actually you put the spoon on the table for them to use to bring the food to their mouth. And that transition actually should happen in our lives as well. So the Courage to Be the Slide, I would recommend this book for people that want to understand how to manage certain relational situations in their life as well, whether that be friendships or relationships or family. It's a really good book. So this book is probably one of my favorite books. This book is Toni Morrison, The Source of Self-Regard, and it's a compilation of her essays, speeches, and some meditation. I love this book. To be fair, if anyone reads Toni Morrison, you know, like her fictional work is great, and to be fair, to some extent, undisputed, right? Like she's the goal. But I really enjoyed this, and I'll tell you the story of this, of why I got into this. So I remember it was 2020, and the George Floyd situation was going on. I remember I was at work, and at the time we had all seen a state-sanctioned killing of an unarmed man, George Floyd. And I remember being at work and just like, I was like, did no one see this? Like, did no one see this? And like, there was just emails coming in, you know, everyone just messaging and stuff like that. And that really upset me. And I remember like, I couldn't function at work. So I remember I just I think I logged off for a bit. I then played some jazz at the time, and I just started to flick through some of these essays. And I remember reading her work, and it was like a balm, like just a soothing balm for me, just reading some of her words about just life, about race, about womanhood as well, about the importance of writing as a craft, some of the questions she would have, and really being encouraged by her writing. I think my favorite essay is like, please, if you do read this, I think it's, to be fair, I also think that this is no longer called A Source of Self-Regard. I think there's something to do with like blood in the new title. I'll check it out and put it in there. So my favorite essays are the Sarah Lawrence commencement address. Beautiful. Her tribute to Martin Luther King Jr. and her tribute to Chinua Achebe. So if anyone knows, Chinua Achebe is my favorite writer of all time, and she does a remarkable job of speaking about the profound impact that Chinua Achebe had on her life and her writing. In dispelling the white gaze and allowing her to be free to write for the people that looked like her and the people who she wanted to represent without judgment. And I thought that was a beautiful testament to Chinua Achebe, because when you read his books and his novels, you definitely see that sentiment. So yeah, Toni Morrison, great book. So one thing you'll soon come to realize about me is that I love mango juice. The way Kel loves orange soda.
Who loves orange soda? Kel loves orange soda. Is it true?
Is the way that I love mango juice. And the final book that I would recommend for you guys to check out in 2023 is Psycho-Cybernetics by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. This book changed my life. This book this year, I read it for the first time this year, and it changed my life. It really looks at the power of our subconscious mind and the brain as a goal-setting machine. And I had never thought about that before. I had never thought about the ability that you can set goals, and to be fair, like, you know, vision boards and affirmations, and you can almost actually rewire your brain into taking an intended direction or course. So this book is really great for understanding that, and it provides practical ways in which you can start to flex those muscles, because a lot of the time some of the ideas in the book that are presented aren't actually ideas we haven't heard before, but ideas we don't take seriously. And I think a measure of our progress is shown in the ideas that we take seriously and the ideas that we decide to action in our lives. So Psycho-Cybernetics is a great book. I remember reading this and I was like, no, I have to take notes. So I literally like read it and then like put notes onto my Google Docs because of how much it meant. And I can see that some of the seeds that I've taken and started to plant in my mind, I can see small sprouts kind of like appearing in particular parts of my life. So I love it. Like this book says, your built-in guidance system. Every living thing has a built-in guidance system or goal-driving device put there by its creator to help achieve its goal, which is, in broad terms, to live. Definitely check it out. Especially, this is a book that I would recommend starting a new year with. You can read it at any point in the year, but like, especially kind of considering the ways in which we think about New Year's, new goals, new aims, we kind of get some motivation and inspiration to do new things. This is a book that definitely should be on that list and something you should just think about kind of carrying out throughout the whole year. So those are the books. Those are the books for 2023. The books I would recommend for you guys to check out will be Essentialism, The Will to Change, The Courage to Be Disliked, The Source of Self-Regard, and Psycho-Cybernetics. Check out those books, read through them. Let me know your thoughts. I'm always interested in hearing your thoughts because those are really, really good books. And on that note, peace.